The brands out there at Sephora really got most of their exciting new releases out during the Sephora sale, and there has been a lull since then. It's been slim pickings, but we've seen it start picking up a little bit. You know, we had the new Fenty foundation, we've had a few other things come out, and today I have some new stuff that I am personally really excited about trying. I mean, trying for y'all on camera. These are not new to me. They're not like first impressions. I don't like to do first impressions as a general rule, but you'll get to see them for the first time. That was a stupid clarification. Anyway, we have the new REFY concealer. I finally got my own shade, my correct shade, shade 3. I went and swatched them in store. I have some thoughts. We'll get to this, but it's a little different. I also picked up 3 of the 4 shades of the new Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Lowlighters. I got everything except, I wanna say, like the deep bronze. There are 2 bronzes and I got the lighter of the 2. And I stumbled on this in store. I had seen this in kind of new release announcements and I was personally excited about it. It's the new Bobbi Brown Plump Lip Serum and I got the shade Bare Lilac. That's the main thing for me, was this shade. I was just really excited to try it. It is a non-stinging plumping serum formula and I know that we are all excited about those kinds of things, so we will be applying that. And I figured that would kind of like lead us down a bit of a lilac path, if you will. Not a primrose path, a lilac path, and we might get back into, probably will, get back into the new Dior Pink Lilac shade, and I have no idea what that's going to cause me to do on my eyes. By the end, I'll have some thoughts on these for y'all. Let's go ahead and jump in. New at Sephora. New at Sephora. Also, I was sent some stuff from In Beauty Project, but it's not new. I just haven't used this in a long time. I figured we would start with this to see if I have any new feelings on it. So this is the Face Glaze Highlighting Gel Cream. I did recently buy the bronze one as well to see if I liked it. And I have to say, as someone who doesn't do any like fake tanning, whatever, I don't really have a whole lot of use for something that's going to pre-darken my face. You know, it's a shimmer goo. Much like many shimmer goos, but it's nowhere near as thick as like the Dior. It's a little bit more of like a skincare feeling product. It is a nice primer, but I didn't want to have a thick layer underneath my foundation, and I also don't want a whole lot of shine. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom through this, but this is the Lisa Eldridge Seamless Skin Tint. This is not at Sephora, but it is my favorite foundation right now, especially to give all other makeup its best chance because it's incredibly lightweight. It's a really fantastic shade match, plus the skincare benefits really seem to agree with my skin. Here we have her. This is what the component looks like. Very minimal, as we are very used to seeing from REFY. The branding is actually on the lid. The doe foot is kind of a rounded one. And what's really interesting about this is actually that it's a little bit gray. We're in that territory of like, are these skin tones, you know, because yes, as people get paler, these, you know, the shade spectrum, people's skin does get less saturated in some cases. And so we do end up a lot of times with that case of like ice cream colors where brands lately have been oversaturating their fair shades and they end up being a little bit too far in one direction to the point that they don't look like skin tones. However, I feel like this one might have run a little far in the other direction. So I'm just going to swatch a few that I have been liking lately as far as skin tone matches are concerned and as far as formulas are concerned, and show y'all the REFY by comparison. So it's like, these two are both Kosas, and people swear by this shade range. It's a pretty good shade range. It does skew a little bit yellow, but for the most part, you can probably find something that'll work on you. Concealers tend to blend pretty well. They don't have to be like a perfect match. Like you can see all these match me and they're all a little bit different. This is 0.7C and this is 01N. And this right here is that new one that I am loving from Jouer in Creme. And then this is the REFY in 3. So you can see it's a little bit kind of green by comparison, and what it really is just that it's a little bit desaturated and kind of gray. It reminds me a little bit of the undertone in like the very fairest shade of the Rose Ink concealer, but it's not that light. So it might work for the olive complected people out there. So let's go ahead and give her a shot. You don't need a lot of this in my experience because it does kind of go a long way for the amount of product that you're putting on, you know? It's got a lot of pigment to it. It's kind of creamy. This is, I don't know, it's like all of these concealers lately, I don't want to like overgeneralize. I have no idea what the actual like production process looks like for all of these brands, but it does feel like they're very similar to each other. The House Labs one feels very similar to this, and feels very similar to the Tower 28, feels very similar to the Natasha Denona. You know, it's like maybe they all kind of have some kind of new similar technology to them. I'm not complaining. I'm not like, oh, they're all bad, you know, but they are all kind of similar in this funny pasty consistency, but the reason that I don't like some of them is not because of that, you know? I don't really like the Natasha Denona one. I haven't used it. I've just swatched it. I know it's like stupid to say I don't like it. I might like it, but when I've swatched it, the colors are very extreme in the fair shades, and it does seem like I'd have a hard time getting a match. With the House Labs, I like it, but it doesn't have enough coverage for me. Like if I'm going to put concealer on, I want it to, by God, be a concealer. This one has more coverage than that, which I do appreciate. But for this shade, it is a little bit green, but it's also quite brightening, so I'm not mad at it. I probably could have gone for 4, but 4 was pretty peach, if memory serves. But I've really appreciated, like, at least all the concealers that I've been trying lately. They do blend really seamlessly, regardless of whether I am wearing foundation or a skin tint or kind of nothing underneath, but also that Lisa Eldridge skin tint makes everything look good, okay? She just makes everybody shine a little bit better by association. She's just a really, 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 really good product, okay? I don't know what Lisa did there, but we don't deserve it. So yeah, you can see it's a little green, and that's actually, some people had been asked, actually a lot of people have been almost kind of like angrily, impatiently maybe is the word, to review the Salt New York concealer that just came out. It's just not really for me. I like the Sneaky Balm better, and the Salt New York one is just like a little bit green for me in both of the shades that I got, and it's just a little bit intensely thick. I find that it tugs, and so like when people have been DMing me and stuff, I will, you know, review it and like send them like photos and stuff of it, of me using it, but I haven't been wanting to just like, you know, when I get something in PR and it's not that great, I don't always just want to like put it on blast that I don't love it. You know what I mean? Like it's just not necessarily how I want to use my time. Sometimes if that's the case, that's the case, but I'll just come out and say like, I think that the Sneaky Balm is like a more practical product for me, a more practical formula. And I don't even think it's a miss, it's just not for me. So there is the REFY concealer. It doesn't have as much coverage as that Jouer that I've been liking. My skin's not great, and I do like the coverage, like of anything. I like having coverage, and this just isn't giving me the coverage really, but maybe it'll layer a little bit. Let's see. It does do a little bit more of like the creamy disappearing act that some of them do, whereas I found that that Jouer really stuck around. Boop. Boop. Like, are we looking for perfection? No. But I want there to be a reason that I wore the makeup. I think that that's okay. There's also something to be said for a little bit of green in a product, like a concealer, because it could act as a little bit of a color corrector. But for my pale green girlies, it might just be a darn good match for the green girlies. But you can see, I'm not getting quite as much coverage under my eyes as I would want, like right here. I think I expected something a little bit higher coverage from Jess Hunt though, because she doesn't wear makeup on every single part of her face, but when she does, it has a purpose, you know? And I would consider her to be someone who would make a concealer that freaking conceals. And it does to some extent, but I wouldn't call it full coverage. Okay, let's go right in with this Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Lowlighter, because this is very much a shimmery product, okay? Like, we might not be able to use a whole lot of it. And I'm not sure that she necessarily meant that to be a bronzer. That's just my read on it because of the color in the pan. That's what I kind of bought it with the intention to do. But they do have so much shimmer in them, and she doesn't call them blushes or bronzers. She calls them lowlighters, meaning pigmented highlighters, I'm guessing. So if we end up with too much shimmer on my cheeks, that is not the fault of the product, that is the fault of me using it wrong, you know? But I am trying to get a use case out of these that is more than me just putting it at the top of my cheekbones, you know? Like if something has this much pigment to it, I want to be able to like pan it, you know, at some point. So there we have Incognito, which is the bronzy one right here. Then the kind of apricot-y one is called Low Key. And then this is Unbothered. I'm starting in with the kind of bronzer shade. I am afraid it's gonna be a little orange on me, but it is just makeup and we shall see. Yeah, she's a little bit orange, although it's coming off more as a blush, which is nice. I'm not sure how well it's going to complement our lilac idea that we're going for, but you know, that's why we play the game. I'm hoping that something that has shimmer to it is going to be really easy to blend, especially in this Upsolite formula that she has so many different things in this formula at this point. I'm hoping that that's what it translates into and not just a metallic cheek. I like that. And I like that you can see my freckles through it. That was a lot. I just put on a lot. It is easy to manipulate. Okay. I've kind of put on too much. I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh, I should give some context. The reason that I went for these is because when she put out the Upsolite blushes, the Yummy Skin blushes, I bought them and then I found them to be far too pigmented for me, and I hoped that these would be less pigmented because they have the shimmer in them. I hoped that that would kind of cut the pigment. And it seems to be the case, but they are still a little on the nose, vividness wise, not just pigmentation wise, but just in the terms of the vividness. We're not talking about every nuanced color here for my skin tone. And I'm thinking that that would probably look better on someone with a little bit deeper of a skin tone than I have, but no reason we can't make it work. It's a little bit dewier than I expected it to be. I thought that the Upslight formula was quite a bit drier than that. And so it is a little bit more kind of tacky than I expected. I thought it was going to go to a little bit more of like a powder finish and I would be able to put powder directly on top of it. So I'm just taking a dry sponge and just taking the top layer of that moisture off so we don't end up with like a kind of a mucky situation when I put some powder on, because I am still planning on putting some powder blush on. So what I learned with the Pink Lilac Dior Rosy Gold blush is that I need beige to kind of fill it in a little bit. So I am gonna go in with a little bit of Behave from NARS before I go in with the Dior, and then we will top with some of the Danessa Myricks in Unbothered. I know it's kind of fussy, but it's not a lot of each product. It's just, I'm a color theory nerd, and so I have to make it make sense. So you see how that kind of adds an opacity to everything? I'm not looking for coverage necessarily, but I just want to bridge the gap between the kind of shades that don't look super natural on my skin and my actual skin tone. And so that like beige is going to bridge the gap. I want to remind everybody though that Dior has a little bit of shimmer in it, just a touch. It's like got a little bit of a mica shift to it, and they happened to fragrance this one. Maybe it's lilac fragranced, I'm not sure, but they did make that decision. I'm gonna use the same brush because I want to apply very little. So a bigger brush actually applies less product over a larger area. Purple! It's so pretty. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. It looks so alive, but in like a totally different way than all the corals that I've been using so much lately. This is me sort of leaning into the fact that neutral can kind of sometimes borrow from the things that work for the olive tone girlies. Oh, is that not just lovely? Is that not just lovely? Ooh. Oh, and what tends to happen when I wear coral blush is that my lips look kind of purple by comparison, and this is actually matching my lips. Fantastic. So then I'm going to top with Unbothered. I'm gonna use that same brush that I used the last time. This is the Singe Beauty F06, and just kind of go the very top, use it as more of a highlighter, but I think it goes really well with the Dior because it does have that kind of mauveness to it. So yeah, I'm not sure that these are a very practical formula for me. I also wanted to swatch this against one of the Rare Beauty shimmery blushes just to show y'all what the difference was. So I opened up Truth because it's like the closest shade that I have here to it. It's not that similar, but you can see that the Rare Beauty ones are kind of more consistent and more pigmented, but just as shimmery. So you don't really have to put on quite as much, but again, these are claiming to be highlighting blushes, whereas hers are called lowlighters. Again, we're kind of creating new names for new products, which makes them hard to contextualize against the rest of my collection. But that's why we're in 4K, so you can believe your eyes if you can't contextualize. The REFY is doing okay things without powder, but it's not as good as other things that I have seen. Like, it's not quite enough coverage, and it's not very self-setting. It's still quite wet. Like, I can tug with my finger on it. So I do feel like it would need to be set with a powder just because like things wafting through the air will start to attract to your face. Not because I think it's going to like crease like crazy and make you look, you know, bad or something. It's just, I'm finding that any sort of thing that I have on my eyes or something like sticks there. So that's the cheek situation. I am gonna turn this down a little bit. I feel a little bit reflective now that we have everything on. Yeah, I do feel like it's pretty easy to top out on those Danessa Myricks blushes and end up just looking a little bit like a disco ball. It's kind of giving Tin Man a little bit. And it does sort of accentuate texture. And I really like, we put the bronzer shade here and then the highlight shade here with powder in between. And I don't feel like it's making like a mucky mess or anything. I don't feel like we put too much powder on or anything, but I don't feel like I put that much of the Danessa Myricks on. And it's just not really doing me any favors, you know? Like, it just doesn't look like something that I would choose. It doesn't look natural, and it doesn't look better than natural. Maybe if we just take a little bit or just an empty brush here, like a brush without anything on it, and just blendy a little bit. Maybe it's just a blending issue. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Still not my favorite. All right, so I'm gonna throw something on my eyes. Y'all don't necessarily need me to talk all the way through it. I'm going to use the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. This has been a roller coaster of owning this palette because I bought it, I thought I liked it, and then I regretted it. And then when I bought the I Need a Nude palette, I realized that using natural bristle brushes really makes such an easier time of using any Natasha Denona eyeshadow formula that now I want to start using this again with my REFY brushes. So that's what I'm going to do, but I'm gonna speed through it because this review is not about the eyeshadow, but still it might be fun to watch. Do I think we made something pretty happen? Yeah. I feel like on camera you can definitely see the flaws in this, and they're exaggerated because low coverage makeup that has any kind of iridescence to it or like a dewiness to the finish is going to look better in real life than it does on camera, and I'm okay with that, you know? But it does look really, really nice in person. It's a very, very pretty makeup look that I would wear any day. But before we jump into final thoughts, I want to go in with this lip. So they had several shades in this I found to be hard to resist because they had a really beautiful coral. It's not an inexpensive product, so I don't want to be like, oh, and it's a bargain, but it is a bargain by comparison to, like, I don't know, my Hermes. And it smells kind of lovely. Not quite as strong as my Hermes Irresistible, but their coral, I would say, is probably very similar to the Irresistible in shade. They also have a clear, which is great. This is Bare Lilac, and I do feel like the color, even though it's very sheer, it is still visible. And I've been wearing this a lot. It's a really beautiful, lightweight, nourishing formula. It feels really tenacious on the lips. I love how freaking glossy it is. Look at it. Look at that. And God bless them, it's not pH color adjusting. It is truly going to stay lilac. We're not talking about lilac and then it turns bubblegum pink. It's really plush on the lips. It feels kind of like water when you put it on. Like, not that it has some kind of like magical effect or something, but I don't know, it just feels wet in a good way. Not cooling, not minty or something, but just kind of wet, but super unsticky, like extremely unsticky. And usually what you trade with stickiness is shine. You either have like sticky with shine or no stickiness and it's kind of like a blah, you know, lack of shine. It's not doing anything mucky or weird. I can't really speak to the plumping necessarily because like I have lip filler. It's not always easy to see those kinds of things, but it's not doing anything irritating, okay? And it does look really volumized and lovely, and it's just a really comfortable, really, really comfortable formula. I would own more of them. I would pay my own money for more of them. So let's hit this with a little bit of Fix Plus, because we do have a little bit of powder. I put the Laura Mercier powder on. I like the Laura Mercier powder because you can put it on top of other things, not just your concealer, and it won't take the color away. You can put it on top of where you have like blush and stuff, and it's so low pigment, it's like almost entirely perfectly translucent. So that's the look, that's the vibe. Let's talk final thoughts on these products. Anyone who's not new to my channel knows it takes something really special to unseat my favorite concealers. My favorite concealers are the Givenchy Prism Libre, the Kosas Revealer Concealer, the Tower 28 Swipe Concealer, and most recently, I've been really in love with the Jouer High Coverage Concealer. Is that what it's called? I need to commit it to memory because it is a true love. That said, am I a total believer? Not necessarily, but I don't think it's bad. I don't think that saying something doesn't unseat my favorite concealers is necessarily an insult. They just like live really, really high in their own little echelon up here. And so this can be very, very, very good. I think someone could own this and be extraordinarily satisfied with it, especially because apparently Jess and her team put so much work into the shade range that there might be something in the shade range that doesn't exist for other people. I think this is a really unique shade. Even if maybe I don't have super niche concealer shade needs. Like I'm very just kind of like neutral, you know what I mean? Fair neutral usually. So like you saw it does work on me, but I think that it could also work really well for people who have trouble finding something that's green enough for them, but it's not super, super pale like this particular shade isn't. Perhaps if there is a case of you finding a shade in this concealer that doesn't exist elsewhere, I will absolutely vouch for this. I think that it is very, very lovely. It just doesn't have quite enough coverage for me, and it's not kind of different enough for one reason or another. I think that the main distinction here is that it's a good concealer that happens to have a really well-researched shade range, and time will tell whether people who have unique shade range needs find it to meet their needs specifically. So I guess oddly, in a way, I'm not the best person to review this because I don't have super specific shade needs. The Danessa Myricks Lowlighters, you know, I came into this thinking these are going to be something that's more for me than her Upslight blushes, the Yummy Skin blushes. And that is the case, and I do like them, but I don't really think that it's a run, do not walk situation for people with my skin tone value. I would say that these are more uniquely suited for people with medium to deep skin tones. And I think that some people might on the face of it say like, yes, that's obvious. Danessa Myricks is going to make things better for medium to deep skin tones, but that's not really the case. She does fantastic shade ranges, okay? Like her Yummy Skin skin tint is one of my favorite items of makeup that I own, and the skin tone match is immaculate. So, you know, it was worth playing the game in this sense, but I think that the low lighter effect and my expectations, it's just kind of like I was hoping it was gonna fit into a part of my routine that I could use it as like a bronzer or a blush that happened to have a little bit of shimmer to it, but it has a little more shimmer to it than I bargained for, and I'm not sure that it really fits into my routine the way that I would want it to. I cannot help but call to mind the LYS new stick blushes that I feel like are a better accomplishment of what this was going for, because, well, at least for what I wanted. I wanted a blush that happened to have shimmer. I didn't want a highlight that happened to have color. But here is Focused from LYS. I love it. I love LYS's grasp on color as well. They just do a really good job of making these kind of one and done shades that are almost hard to put your finger on. You know, you're like, is that rose or is it wine, berry? What is it? It doesn't matter. It looks fantastic on the skin. They call it warm cinnamon, but like it's just a really, really good shade. And the shimmer in this case does make it so that it blends really beautifully under the cheeks, very similarly to the like RMS powder blushes, but in a cream format. Whereas you can see that this is very much a colored highlight. And so by the time you get enough color on, by the freaking way, once you get enough color on, you have too much shimmer. Look at that. That's Rare Beauty in, what was it? Truth? And then that's the LYS in Focused. Y'all, those are so similar. I would say go LYS all day long. Look how similar those are, and that's a powder and that's a cream. But why don't we play the game? That LYS one is superior. It's across the board. It really just like meets in the middle of those two that I was comparing. Like it's like this plus this, go for that. I love being able to solve a problem so elegantly. That's an elegant solution, and it's not expensive either. LYS does a great job. That makes me happy. Okay, I was a little discontent about the Danessa Myricks products, but now that I know we've kind of like solved it, I can sleep tonight, you know? And then, I mean, I think y'all know my thoughts on this. Am I hard to please on a lip gloss? No, but it is fun when I find something that's a unique shade as I fumble this. It's just a unique shade, and I do feel like the shade shows up. It's obviously a lip gloss, but still it shows up. It's not just clear when it gets on the lips. And, you know, I am always on the hunt for these kind of funky cool tones that stay this color on the skin, because the Dolce & Gabbana blue one that I bought ended up being color adjusting, and the In Beauty Project one, they call it like Surprise or whatever, color adjusting. Like I want a cool tone that is a sheer wash of a very kind of like fun icy pastel color that stays that color. This is by Rado, by the way. By Rado, by the way. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this. It's very comfortable to wear. It lasts a long time. It's deliciously actually juicy looking and glossy looking, and that makes me really happy. And they're pretty expensive, and that's annoying. They're almost $40, I think, but I would own more of them because I just think that it's really lovely, and you just don't come across a color like this that often. So it goes really nicely with the Dior blush, and it just helps with this whole color profile that, as much as I love coral, this is actually a little more skin native for me, you can see, because it like matches my lips better. So that is why I have a lot of like mauve leaning things in my collection as well. So hopefully this was fun for y'all. Get to see some of the stuff that's new at Sephora. All kinds of stuff rolling out soon. I think we're gonna do a tepid takes pretty soon. I'm overdue for some declutters, so we might see some declutters soon. So stay tuned. If you liked this video, please do give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe while you're here so that you don't miss any of the cool stuff that's coming up. I will put a video up here that I think you'll enjoy. If you liked this one, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you to my current subscribers for being so incredible and amazing and lovely. I love you so much. Thank y'all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.